Hey guys, Srey here. I want to talk about the Sylvanas changes that were in the most recent patch. She got quite a few changes to almost all of her abilities, including a new heroic, and a lot of her talents were removed and new ones were added. So what I wanted to do today was go over if she's stronger or worse, and what you should be building on her for talent-wise. So let's look at her abilities first and the actual changes to her abilities. So for basic attack damage was increased from 74 to 85, which is about a 14-15% damage increase, which is quite significant for just a straight up buff. The other change is for Withering Fire. The damage is increased from 39 to 48, and that's about a 24%-ish increase in damage, which is a lot for a straight up buff to an ability. Remember that Withering Fire also works with talents specifically, so these talents got buffed. At least when you're talking about Barb Shot. The last change she got is she no longer has possession as a heroic. Instead, it's moved to a talent, and she now has Mind Control. Mind Control is a totally new heroic that after channeling for 1 second, you basically control where you can move the enemy hero. It's also, of course, you're channeling it for the whole duration, so that you'll be stunned or channeling for 3.5 seconds in total. The level 20 version increases her movement speed. Or the movement speed of the target by 100% when they're under the effects of mind control, which is actually very significant. And if you get mind control, you usually want Dark Lady's Call. So all these other changes are talent changes, which we'll look into in the actual game itself. So let me just switch over here. There we go. All right, so we have Sylvanas. I'd just like to say before we go into it, because some of you guys want to know before, without having to watch the whole video, I don't think she's worse. She might be buffed. She's kind of the same overall strength than she was previously. She's just strong in different ways. I think her PvE power was definitely reduced in strength, at least early game, and her late game team fighting, or at least mid game team fighting, was compensated. So let's look at level 1. Usually, or before, you get the increase on Withering Fire, the range increase, or you'd get Barb Shot, or perhaps Lost Soul. I would always get Barb Shot. So instead of Barb Shot, you now have these 3 completely new talents. I think Paralysis was already there, actually, or maybe it was level 4. Regardless, Paralysis is level 1. You have Overflowing Quiver and Mercenary Queen. Mercenary Queen is like Mercenary Lord, but worse. So the mercenary camps only do increased damage. You don't take reduced damage from them. However, you do have your passive, so you're probably not going to take damage anyway. So this is basically Mercenary Lord at level 1. So I suggest here taking Overflowing Quiver, and I'll explain why in a second. But first I'll explain why I don't get these other talents. So Mercenary Queen or Mercenary Lord might sound good, but you usually don't push with camps. Usually the purpose of getting mercenary camps is you cap the ogres and then they push by themselves in a lane and then you go somewhere else in the map. It's very rare that you actually push with the camp, and for this reason I don't get Mercenary Queen. Paralysis increases the duration of Black Arrows, which is her passive, from 1 second to 1.75 seconds. So let me just go over to the tower here and show you the difference in getting Paralysis. So if I just do a normal auto attack here, it's going to stun it for 1 second. Okay. If I use Shadow Dagger, it's going to stun it for 3 seconds. This is because Shadow Dagger applies a dot that lasts 2 seconds. So at when the last dot ticks, which is after 2 seconds, the target will be, or the structure here will be stunned for another additional 1 second. So it's stunned during and for 1 second after the effect. So it should be 3 seconds in total. Okay. So now we take Paralysis, and you can see the difference. So slightly longer in the auto attack and in the Shadow Dagger. So I want you to take note that the increase on when you use Shadow Dagger is still a flat increase in duration. So when you use an auto attack, it's a 0.75 longer duration on Black Arrows, and when you use Shadow Dagger, it's still a 0.75 increase on Black Arrows. So even though this lasts 2 seconds, it doesn't get increased to 3.5 seconds in total, and the whole effect, overall doesn't get increased to like 5.25 or something. The whole effect gets increased from 3 seconds to 3.75 seconds. for Shadow Dagger. So it's only a 0.75 second increase in the duration, which is not that long um, for the Shadow Dagger itself. When you're actually chasing targets, or I'll talk about that later in a second because you can't target heroes normally. But when you're auto-attacking this building, you know, it like gives you a lot more time to do this. So if I refresh the forts here and reset my talents, that's gonna be a lot harder to do without it. Still doable, but like I'm getting hit. What you usually do is like you stand near one, Q1, then shoot at the same time, and you can stun both. This also paralysis also makes it slightly easier to do this mercenary camp. Too bad I'm low on health now, but so usually you know you attack the mercenary camp, but once and you Q and auto attack a different target. But once you run out of shots here, the ogre starts to attack you a bit. If you have paralysis, the ogre won't get any attacks off. So paralysis also works with the level 13 talent, or sorry, 16 talent, overwhelming affliction. So basically, it allows black arrows to affect heroes, but instead of stunning them, it applies a slow. So that slow will last 0.75 seconds longer than without paralysis. So the big benefit of getting paralysis is not the fact that you can stun buildings slightly longer. It's the fact that overwhelming affliction lasts a little bit longer. So it lasts. It's much easier to keep the slow up and apply it to all heroes. However, I haven't noticed that much of an impact in actual team fights with it or against heroes, because usually you're just auto attacking and queuing anyway, so the slow stays up because you're attacking within 1 second. So you're usually staying at max stacks anyway. So for this reason, I go Overflowing Quiver. Additionally, I get Barb Shot, which I'll explain in a second, over Unstable Poison. So it lets you clear minion waves much quicker. So what Overflowing Quiver does is that basically every time you kill a minion, you get a free Withering Fire that doesn't attack heroes. So you get, if you're just clearing the wave without any heroes nearby, you're getting double the Withering Fires instead of just the one. So what this does is it gives you a bit more wave clear, which is usually why you're picking Sylvanas. You know, you're not picking Sylvanas because she's a great team fighter. Most of the time, it's usually because of her wave clear and her PvE power. So at level 4, you can get Withering Barrage, With the Wind, or Lost Soul. This is a really easy choice. You're going to get Lost Soul. So the previous Lost Soul, if you remember, was 2-second reduction, just a flat 2-second reduction in Shadow Dagger. So it'd be decreased from 10 to 8, and this is a level 1 talent, and it was still really good. But Barb Shot at level 1 was usually what you get anyway. So now it's 1.75 seconds each time it spreads to a hero. So, you know, if you're in a team fight, you're going to get a huge reduction in the in cooldown. So if you're hitting 5 heroes, it's going to be a 6.25 second reduction. So you'll have a 3.75 cooldown instead of a 10-second cooldown, which is, I hope I did that right, a lot. And even if you're hitting like 1 or 2 heroes, you're still getting a big reduction in cooldown. It's very effective. It's extremely good. It makes your team fighting a lot better, especially once you get the Overwhelming Affliction at 16. But always get Lost Soul. So the other options are With the Wind to increase the range on your Q, and Withering Barrage, so you shoot slightly faster and you get 1 extra charge, which has like almost no effect in team fights or anything else for that matter. The firing range also is not very significant because the auto attack range, you can just see here, if I can hover over it while I attack. So I go to auto attack, and the auto attack range is exactly the same as Withering Fire. So if you're auto attacking something, you can Withering Fire. If you get the range, the Withering Fire will be slightly larger than your auto attack range, which, I mean, you should be auto attacking in fights anyway. That's my reasoning behind not getting it. At 7, you have Barb Shot, which was previously at level 1. Unstable Poison, which is not the same. They actually nerfed it a bit. It no longer deals damage to heroes or structures. And Possession, which was the level 10 heroic ability. However, it's slightly different. So instead of having 6 charges or whatever it was, it's 3, and it no longer costs any mana, I believe. Let me just check. Yeah, it no longer costs any mana. So yeah, So basically this gives you 3 charges of possession, and I would not advise getting this talent. I still think it's underwhelming. I'd rather be able to instantly clear the wave or do mercenary camps or something with the barb shot, or just clear the wave with Unstable Poison. Okay, so the reason I get barb shot over Unstable Poison is if you get overflowing quiver. Here, let me just go to level 7. Set level 7, because the scaling makes it easier to clear waves. Overflowing quiver, lost soul, barb shot. So let's look at how fast we clear it. Start out, try and stay out of range of Arthas, so my withering whatever doesn't proc it. Okay, so that's with barb shot. It's really quick. I could have done it faster if Arthas hadn't been taking up some of my my withering fire charges. Let me just reset my talents here and go again. This time I'm gonna get Unstable Poison. Again, I use some charges there. So it's like Unstable Poison is going to be a little bit faster, but the benefit of having barb shot is that you can do mercenary camps much quicker. So let me just show you here the without barb shot. You can do mercenary camps quicker, and you can also do you can work on like the objective for. Because the monsters are basically the objective things, so like the Immortal on Battlefield of Eternity, the Guardians on Infernal Shrines, and so forth. So you can do the objective faster, and it lets you do bosses faster, etc. Whereas Unstable Poison does not, and it has like similar wave clear. So let's reset this. Overflowing Quiver, reset the allies, the enemy. Take barb shot. So let me go clear this camp now, and you'll see it's a little bit faster. Don't really want to kill this whole thing, but I'm already committed to it. So you're gonna have a little bit faster clear with this on the camps. If you think about like Blackheart's Bay, it's definitely more effective on that map because you can do the camps really quickly. So you can see the wave clear is still really strong. Alright, so at level 10, just reset to level 10. It's going to make me do this all over again. Alright, so you have Wailing Arrow and Mind Control. So everyone knows what Wailing Arrow does, so let's look at Mind Control. So this is the effect of Mind Control. You can move the hero for 2.5 seconds. So if you're 1v1, obviously this has like almost no effect, unless you like drag the enemy hero into under the towers and Towers of Doom, or under a fort, or out of their base is really impactful. So if Arthas is standing behind this wall, you can mind control him out in front of the wall. It's really good for abilities like you can mind control him into a Mirrodin's Haymaker or something. If enemies are running away, you can mind control them back to your team. If they're split or caught, you can just mind control and bring them into your team. So mind control has a lot of uses. It's a good talent, but in general, Wailing Arrow is going to be a better option at level 10. Like I'd say 80% of the time you want to take Wailing Arrow, and 20% of the time Mind Control. Mind Control can be good if the enemy team doesn't have Cleanse, because Cleanse is by far the biggest counter to it. If you cleanse a target that's affected by Mind Control, it just removes the effect and cancels her channel. So it basically completely nullifies Mind Control. So the only way you can deal with it, if the enemy dealer has a healer, is you're going to want to Mind Control their healer so they can't cleanse themselves. So you can see here Barb Shot has really good wave clear. Alright, so level 13. So level 13 is kind of a toss-up. You could get Spell Shield if they have a lot of burst damage. So if they have a Jaina, Kael'thas, even though he's not played much, even a Greymane, Li Ming, etc. Will of the Forsaken is really good if the enemy team has a lot of crowd control. So if they have Mirrodin, Tyrande, Arthas, any kind of, or Azul especially these days, any kind of effect where you can get crowd control pretty hard, Will of the Forsaken is really good. Windrunner, I wouldn't really recommend, but it is 2 talents combined previously. So previously, Windrunner was 2 different talents. So when you use your Haunting Wave, it would refill all the charges on your Q. And there's another talent, when you use Haunting Wave, you can use Haunting Wave again within a few seconds, within 5 seconds. So they combined these 2 talents and put it at 13. I still don't think I would take this. I think the Will of Forsaken is much more effective if you want mobility. And there's also the other option, which is Life Drain. So Life Drain basically heals you each time Shadow Dagger spreads. And with Lost Soul in team fights, you're going to be having Shadow Dagger up every like 4 or 5 seconds. So you're going to get quite a lot of healing out of this. And it's also really good, you know, if you're just laning or pushing out, you can heal in between fights very effectively. Like the healing is very significant from Life Drain. So I would recommend, in general, getting Life Drain, and then picking Will of Forsaken or Spell Shield situationally. Okay, so at level 16, there are quite a few options. The biggest change here is Cold Embrace got nerfed. So previously, Cold Embrace would have Shadow Dagger apply vulnerable to every hero affected by Shadow Dagger. It would also reduce the range by 25%. So now it only applies Shadow Dagger to the vulnerable of Shadow Dagger to the first target hit. The range is no longer reduced either. So I would recommend never taking this talent unless you're in some kind of very niche burst build not burst build, but rather with a burst team where you're just like throwing out the vulnerability and then your whole team's following up. But like even if you're in that comp, usually you'd have a Jaina with a vulnerability, or you'd have a Tyrande with the Hunter's Mark or something like that, so you wouldn't even need this talent anyway. The other option is Remorseless is down here. Remorseless is basically it was at level 7, but instead of being 25% additional damage, it's basically follow through. It's what it is. A level 16 follow through. The reason it's a level 16 talent is because Sylvanas has so many ways of proccing it. You're basically going to get it on every single auto attack. So your auto attacks, this should basically read your auto attacks deal 40% additional damage, which is good, especially considering her auto attacks got a 14-50% damage increase. This also reminds me of what I wanted to say before. So Barb Shot, it's the same Barb Shot as before, except that Sylvanas' Withering Fire got buffed by about 24% more damage. So Barb Shot does 24% more damage as well. So that's why the wave clear is actually comparable now between Unstable Poison and Barb Shot. So Remorseless is going to increase your damage from auto attacks. However, I would still prefer to go Overwhelming Affliction here. I've mentioned Evasive Fire, but so if you're comparing Overwhelming Affliction to Evasive Fire increases your movement speed by 30%, and Overwhelming Affliction slows the enemy movement speed by 30%. So you might be thinking, okay, well I'd kind of rather just be more mobile with Evasive Fire. Well, Overwhelming Affliction is going to slow the entire team. So it's basically like it's almost like your entire team has 30% movement speed because you're relatively faster than they are. Whereas Evasive Fire, only you are faster than the enemy team. So, however, you can, this can be cleansed, this can fall off, this isn't always up, where Evasive Fire on you will almost always be up. But I think the utility of Overwhelming Affliction is just so good. So if we read the ability here, its Black Arrow now applies to heroes slowing their movement speed by 6% for the duration, stacks up to 5 times. So Shadow Dagger, you might be like, oh, I have to get like 5 attacks off, I have to get 5 winging charges off. Well, Shadow Dagger procs more than 5 times, or I think it might be 5 times. So one Shadow Dagger will fully stack Overwhelming Affliction. So if I see Arthas over here, so Arthas is fully slowed by the end of Shadow Dagger, and he's going to be slowed for 3 seconds, at some level. So if he's slowed here, I should take off cooldowns. And then if I'm auto attacking here, he's going to be permanently slowed basically. Slow falls off when he's mind controlled because I'm not damaging him. But again, so he's fully slowed when I Shadow Dagger. So that's my reasoning of getting Overwhelming Affliction over Evasive Fire. I'd always recommend Overwhelming Affliction, especially with this Lost Soul build, or just Lost Soul in general, because the cooldown is going to be like 5 seconds on Shadow Dagger, or less, and they're going to be slowed for 3 seconds, and you can auto attack. So Like you're almost gonna have like a full uptime on the slow from overwhelming affliction, which is insanely good. The enemy team is basically just permanently slowed by like 30%. So that's why I feel like overwhelming affliction is better than remorseless. At level 20, if you go if you go mind control, you're usually gonna want Dark Lady's Call. So you can see how much faster they walk here. Like they move insanely quicker. And the distance that they move and the speed at which they move is much better than I originally thought when I just read this. Like, oh, 100% movement speed increase. However, you don't actually have to always get Dark Lady's Call. If you go Mind Control, you could still just go Bolt of the Storm. But I think if you're going to go Mind Control, you should commit to Dark Lady's Call most of the time. So in general, I'd recommend Wailing Fire or Wailing Arrow again over Mind Control, and I'd rather go Bolt of the Storm at 20. Other than that, this is going to be your standard build, so I'll just go over it one more time. Get away from me, Arthas. So you're going to want Overflowing Quiver at level 1, Lost Soul at level 4, Barb Shot level 7, Wailing Arrow at level 10, Life Drain at level 13, but you could also get a Will of Forsaken or Spell Shield. Generally, you're going to get Will of Forsaken. If you don't get Life Drain, you don't really get Spell Shield that often. At level 16, Overwhelming Affliction, and at level 20, Bolt of the Storm. So that concludes my Sylvanas wrap-up. Overall, I think she is... Am I happy with the changes? Yeah. I think she's better overall. I don't know how much better, but I think she is better overall. I think she'll see more competitive play. She was already seeing competitive play at Worlds in Korea. I think this will make her better. The only major nerf that she really got, well, first of all, Barb Shot isn't at level 1 anymore. It's at level 7, so you can't get Unstable Poison. So this makes your early game wave clear worse, but your late game wave clear is about the same. It's just if you don't get Unstable Poison, it can be a little bit more difficult to clear if the enemy team's pushing or something. You no longer have Evasive Fire. You now have like the Shadow Heal, the Life Drain, and then you don't have Cold Embrace, which was extremely strong. Like a 25% damage increase for against the whole enemy team was insane. So like the biggest two changes are honestly the biggest changes are she lacks the early game PvE. She no longer has 30% movement speed, and she no longer deals 25% increased damage to the whole team. So she might be like stronger individually, but I'm not sure if she's stronger against the enemy team. Like she might make up for it with the super low cooldown of Shadow Dagger because of Lost Soul, and then their enemy team is constantly slowed with Overwhelming Affliction. But I don't know if that makes up for the enemy team just having taking 25% more damage and you having more movement speed. But we'll see. I definitely don't think she's straight up worse, but yeah, Mind Control can be really annoying in Hero League. So I'll even sometimes ban Sylvanas just because Mind Control is so annoying when you're winning the game and then late game they get like Dark Lady's Call, or once they're level 10 they just start mind controlling that guy who's constantly out of position, and it's just really obnoxious and he's dying like every time he's up, or sometimes you even get caught because the range is like absurdly far, especially if you're standing in a bush or something. But yeah, I guess we just got to deal with it. I think it's decent and competitive. Anyway guys, I'll talk to you later.
Your allies and your enemies will be random game after game, so there's really no reason to worry about improving them. The only constant thing across all